Imelda Herrero had a beautiful dream. She really did. She dreamed she was a little sprite flying free through a forest. But there are places to go, things to do, and people to see. The day begins the way it usually does, with Imelda's father struggling to get the car up and running. The car's nickname is Shelby. She's a piece of crap junker, but she's their car, and she serves them well. Enough, at least. As her father fumbles with Shelby, her younger brother is ahead of her, much more awake than his older sister. Hugo turns around and asks, "Oi, donde tu gustad comer?" And now Imelda had to think about this. But while she was thinking, her younger brother Isaac already knew and said, "Hey, let's go eat at El Gato Azul." Now, Imelda couldn't complain. El Gato Azul had great food. It was a fantastic Cuban restaurant, although Imelda did have to wonder who the hell names a Cuban restaurant the Blue Cat when you translate it directly into English. Oh well. Finally, the car's engine started, and off they went. Her brother takes out homework that he forgot about from last night and starts working on it in the car, as her father starts listening to Crush Fox on the Freedom Wave radio talk show. Imelda Herrero stares out the window absent-mindedly as she watches the scenery of sunlit Pearl City fly by in the morning sun, taking special notice of the green evacuation tunnel entrances located at the corner of every city block. You know, just in case anything ever happened and you had to duck and cover, you knew where to go. And as they reach town square, she sees her favorite landmark in all of sunlit Pearl City, the Heroes Monument. A series of bronze and copper statues dedicated to the heroes of the Golden Age, an age of mystery and wonder. Imelda wished she could have seen the statues as they were first unveiled, as they were meant to be seen. Now they are corroded and rusty. They quickly drive by and continue onwards up the familiar road, and they made that left turn into the plaza that had El Gato Azul. They park, walking to the restaurant's front doors, Isaac opening the doors first because he was the hungriest. Then comes Hugo, and finally Imelda, who was so tall she had to duck to avoid hitting her head on the door frame. Being 8 feet tall or 244 centimeters, that door frame was not made for people of her size anyway. They enter and seat themselves, eagerly awaiting a waiter. Hugo and Isaac sit with their backs towards the sun, so the sun wouldn't blind them. Imelda is tall enough that the sun is blocked out by the window's frame from her height. She sits opposite of her father and brother, using 2 chairs instead of 1. The seats were too small for her. Now everyone already knew what they wanted, and Imelda orders the buffet tray, and the staff, they knew what that meant. After the waiter takes their order, Imelda, not wanting to have any awkward silences, asks, "Hey, how's everyone doing?" Isaac said, it's okay," he mumbles as he again takes out his homework from last night. Hugo sees this and sighs. "Why do you do this to yourself?" Isaac couldn't help but shrug and say, "I don't know." Imelda asks Isaac, "Hey, do you need any help with your homework? You sure you're okay?" And Isaac said, Yeah, don't worry about me. Only a couple of problems left. It'll be fine." The waiter comes in carrying Hugo and Isaac's food, and a second waiter comes in carrying Imelda's buffet tray. At 244 centimeters tall, her appetite is legendary among restaurant owners in sunlit Pearl. As the family begins to eat their meals, Imelda offers to pay the tab. As the silverware clinked and clanked, Hugo looked up from his meal and said, "Gracias, mija, yo lo sé. I know you didn't want to work this weekend, but it really does mean a lot that you're willing to do this. Thank you." Imelda responds with, "No, it's okay. It's not every day that an opportunity like this comes along," trying her best to reassure her father that everything's okay and not to worry about her. She went back to her breakfast, happily polishing off her food, until she got to the Cornish hen. She fit half of it in her mouth and bit down, biting through the chicken bones like they were mere baby carrots. You know how when you're eating, your brain can instinctively feel how hard or soft something is? And you know, hey, I shouldn't bite down on this really hard. It could hurt my teeth. Well, Imelda isn't exactly a normal person. She is a superhuman, and this affects how she lives her life, even how she eats her food. When she bites down on that Cornish hen, her brain instinctively feels that the bones are much softer than her teeth, and so no need to hold back. With Imelda Herrero, there are no chicken bones. Ever. Of course, for those around her, this can be rather off-putting. Her father, Hugo, hearing the loud crunching noises that his daughter is making, turns to Imelda and says, "Eva, no, shh." And Imelda, realizing how rude she's being, gasps, "Oh, sorry. She made sure from then on to only eat the bones if she could fit them entirely in her mouth, so no one else would be bothered by the noise. The family enjoys and finishes their breakfast, making small talk as Imelda pays the tab. They drop Isaac off at his high school, and Hugo and Imelda continue on to the Blue Weather construction site. Now, why a construction site, you may ask? Well, you see, Imelda's father, Hugo, is self-employed. He owns a small family-owned business, Hugo Demolitions and Renovations Incorporated. And Imelda is not just any employee. She is the most important employee in the entire operation. Here was one of the few places where she actually felt comfortable about her powers and abilities. Most of the time, she didn't like her rather brutish powers, but here, her strength and size had a place to belong. They just arrived, the new Blue Weather Bank. Hugo immediately goes to the changing room to change into his uniform, complete with a white hard hat for directors and supervisors. Now, Imelda, her powers require, shall we say, specific accommodations. She didn't have a normal uniform. She didn't wear a standard yellow construction worker helmet. She needs a uniform tailor-made to fit her and accommodate her powers. One of the employees, Hernandez, yells out to Hugo, "Oye jefe, la paquete es aquí." And Hugo responds with, "Ah, bueno, yo estaba pensando que nunca va a llegar. Ya, bien, está aquí ahora." And Imelda's excited. Her new custom uniform is here. Hugo signs on the dotted line of the delivery man's clipboard. Imelda approaches the crate and grabs the upper right corner of it and pulls, ripping out splinters of wood and nails that had been bolted on. She doesn't need a crowbar, she does it with her bare hands. She reaches inside and pulls out the thick, cumbersome suit. Judging from the material, you probably wouldn't know what it was made out of. It is made on the molecular level from carbon fiber nanotubes, some of the strongest, toughest stuff around, several times stronger and lighter than steel per gram. The suit was big, bulky. No normal human could possibly worn such a monstrosity. It looked like someone took a diver's suit and pumped it up with a bunch of car tire rubber. But it is exactly what Imelda needs. The material is smooth to the touch and pitch black, ever so slightly glittering in the sun from the little flecks of synthetic diamond interlaced between the fibers as anchors to give it additional strength and flexibility, like an actual net mesh. The thick, dark yellow raised lines on the wrists, ankles, and the sides of the arms and legs. She rushes out to the back changing room and promptly returns wearing the suit. It's time to put the suit to the test and let her powers really shine. She walks up to a big white semi-truck. The trailer is full of bags of dry cement, cinder blocks, and reinforced steel rod. It is a colossal thing. Altogether, it must have weighed a little more than 36 metric tons. The 244 centimeter tall woman begins to focus on her gift and concentrates. She begins to grow, her body expanding proportionally in all directions. She's growing taller, 3 meters, 4 meters, 5 meters, until she stands at a towering 15 meters tall. While she is superhumanly strong and tough in her normal form, it's more of a side effect really, her gift leaking into her normal form. Her true power was growing into colossal size at will, and with it, take her strength and durability to astronomical levels. She inspected her wrists, ankles, and the sides of her arms and legs, and just like she had requested, those raised dark yellow lines were stretched into bright yellow strips of reflective safety tape based on the same principle as an octopus changing color by expanding and contracting the pigmentation cells in its body. The yellow stripes were warnings to pedestrians and co-workers of the danger that she herself posed, being as large, strong, and heavy as she is. Once she's satisfied with now bright and reflective warning stripes, she inspects her suit for any unwanted rips and tears. Her powers did not extend to her clothing, only she grew. And as you can imagine, this led to a lot of embarrassing situations in her childhood and teenage years. Another reason why she hates her powers, but that's a story for another time. She finds no rips and tears in the black and yellow suit, a smooth surface subtly glittering in the sun. If you had asked her, she would have said it was beautiful. But as beautiful as it was time to find out if it was worth the price tag. She looks at the semi-truck trailer, which only comes up to the middle of her thighs, give or take. She walks up to the side of the trailer, placing her hands underneath it and lifts. She could feel the essence from inside her, being conducted through her arms and bubbling out her palms and fingers into the trailer, manifesting in the form of tactile telekinesis. She lifts the trailer up off the ground, and the truck it is attached to coming with it. The tactile telekinesis reaches out and strengthens the fifth wheel, so the semi-truck's own weight will not rip it apart. She also feels her essence travel down her legs and into her feet. She now feels vindicated that she had asked for stirrup-style design, because, just as she had suspected, her essence had no problem permeating her exposed toes and heels, but did not travel very well through the strap that loops around the middle of her feet, letting her concentrate her essence where she needs it to be, sending out her tactile telekinesis into the ground, strengthening the ground, and anchoring her to its surface, making it so the ground wouldn't give way under her weight. That when she lifted something heavy, Newton's third law of motion, for every action, there was an equal and opposite reaction, would not bury her underground, she would stay anchored where she was. After holding the truck above her head in a bench press manner for a good 5 to 10 seconds, she lowers the truck back on the ground. She inspects the suit now that it had been under some stress and strain. To her relief, there are no rips and tears. The suit held. She takes a few steps back, being careful that no one is standing behind her, and looks at the ground where she had been standing on. Her feet had made clear impressions in the dirt, like you would make walking along a very fine and sandy beach. But the important thing is that she had not fallen through the ground and damaged any underground pipes or electrical wiring, which, unsurprisingly, is kind of important when you're trying to build a building. She knew it. The greater control her suit gave her by funneling the essence to her heels and toes had made the footprints much shallower than usual. She smiles happily and feels proud for understanding her powers to such a degree. It is officially time to get down to business. And it is a blur as Imelda gets into the rhythm, the zone of work. With her great strength, she lifts and carries huge loads of iron rebar and steel I-beams, multiple bags of dried cement to wherever they need to go. She digs out trenches with her bare hands to lay down the foundation. With Imelda around, there was no real reason to have huge, expensive, gas-chugging heavy machinery. She could basically do it all under her own power, even demolition. She can tear walls apart, crush and bend steel beams, and then just carry the debris to dump trucks for disposal. She also has a special carrying case made just for her. It is a colossal thing. It is like a blue-gray backpack, except made of metal, and the size of a dumpster. It wasn't made for her normal size, but for her and her giant size. She can fill the entire carrying case with door frames, cinder blocks, and other large objects. And also, in a back area, an attachment for things like tools, food, things that normal-sized people would actually use. Imelda filled the special carrying case with everything the workers on the upper floor needed. Tools, supplies, everything. She picks up the case and puts it on her back. Once the case is secure, she walks to the scaffolding and to the wall of the building. She looks at the rectangular holes that will one day be the windows once complete, and from there demonstrates another reason why she considers tactile telekinesis to be far and away her most useful and important ability, and begins climbing the scaffolding. Now, Under normal circumstances, there's no way the wall and the rectangular window holes could possibly support her body weight. This 15-meter tall woman should have ripped the scaffolding and the wall clean off as she climbed it. She climbs them by pouring her essence into the wall and the scaffolding, strengthening them to the point where they can support her body weight. As she climbs higher and higher up the building and scaffolding, she is impressed with herself. Over the past couple of months of working on the job, her fine control and precision had increased so much. This hands-on experience has been better for her than any amount of training in some classroom could ever have been. She reaches the current top floor and takes her backpack off and places it down on the floor for her coworkers. She unloads her supplies and slides down the scaffolding like a normal person would slide down a ladder. As she lands on the ground and picks up another I-beam, she notices a buzzing streak of light fly by her face, and then another, and another. They were fireflies, and Imelda knew only one superhuman in the city who had that kind of power. Turning her head in the direction where the flashing lights are coming from, she wipes a strand of autumn brown hair from her eyes and sweat from her forehead and saw the pristine black limousine pulling in and parking. She should have gotten a parking ticket and probably would have if she was anybody else. But she wouldn't because of who she knew, who she was. And the limo doors open, revealing the one, the only Siri Winters. Siri steps out of the limousine, looking very prim, proper, and professional. Her business dress is midnight black, with bits of bright crimson red from her blouse poking out from her sleeves and her collar. High heels, a business skirt, nylon stockings, and thin designer glasses. Imelda had no idea why she was dressed so formally, or the, let's be honest now, probably Italian designer that she was wearing. She didn't care all that much about fashion, and why should she? They never made anything in her size anyway. But she knew that if she ever wanted to know, Siri would tell her all about it. The petite young woman struts in like she owns the goddamn place, full of confidence and not even thinking about the other construction workers that are around her. Imelda can see that she's here for a talk, and that she's going to go get one. Right now? Okay, let's get this over with, Imelda thinks to herself. Siri could see that the giantess didn't really want to talk to her, but that's okay. That just means she would have to use more, shall we say, assertive methods in her approach. As she walks towards Imelda, she rolls up her sleeves, further revealing the red underblouse underneath them. She begins concentrating, focusing on her own essence, as she telepathically summons a swarm of insects to her. But she was more than just summoning insects from around her. Irregular oblong patches of skin on her forearms turned black, and from the blackness, insects emerged. They came out like they were emerging from some kind of gel. They emerged from her forearms, from underneath the collar of her shirt, from her skirt, from everywhere. With a telepathic command, she forms a staircase of writhing, chitinous bodies that leads right to Imelda's face. She walks forward to the beginning of the staircase. Siri bends down and carefully removes her high heels. They must have been $1,200, and begins walking up the writhing, teeming staircase. Imelda couldn't help but be impressed by Siri's own level of control and precision as she walks up the staircase of living bodies. Imelda could feel that Siri was pouring her essence into the insects as she touches them, strengthening them and empowering them physically so that they could withstand and support her weight without being crushed. Eyes trained directly on Imelda, exaggerating the swaying of her hips to make sure that everyone is paying attention to her, and only her. Typical Siri. She just has to be the center of attention no matter where you are. Hasn't changed since middle school. Oh well, I guess there are worse things than being a little bit of a drama queen, I suppose. In fact, she was being too dramatic. Imelda had known Siri since they were both little girls, and knew that Siri had a habit of overcompensating with false bravado, fake confidence when she was feeling nervous or scared. Imelda didn't like where this was going. Siri reaches the top of the staircase, and she then removes her sunglasses. Pitch black, thin, and designer wear, no doubt about it. revealing her eyes. Her power stains her as well. You can tell that she is a superhuman because the whites of her eyes, the scalia, are pitch black and the irises are an iridescent green color. No one is ever just a superhuman. There is always something about their power that taints them, marks them as different. She gazes at Imelda with her ever so slightly glowing green eyes and smirks. Honey, darling, I know you like to sweat and work hard, but some of us have to keep up appearances. Imelda couldn't help but roll her eyes at the implication. Ciri is trying to play it off and act relaxed and in control, but Imelda can tell that Ciri is stressed about something. Look, Ciri, I'm sure you're here for a reason. What is it? The blonde woman with her long, flowing golden hair sighs, and her face hardens into a more natural and serious expression. It takes Imelda by surprise. She knew Ciri was nervous about something, but to drop the mask of fake confidence completely, this was no laughing matter. The society is recruiting us, and no, it's not voluntary. Imelda's stomach turned upside down. Mandatory recruitment, oh god, this was what happened. Ciri seems almost at a loss for words. They found a small community living outside the city, living off the grid as it were, and giving birth to several superhuman children. The society is going to take them in. Imelda's mouth went dry. Waves of hot anxiety and nervousness crawled along her back. Imelda thought, She looks at Ciri and says, I guess we're going to be the muscle to keep things in line. Ciri replies with, Yeah, pretty much. But it shouldn't be too bad. We're going to have to be at the institute around 4:30 a.m. because the parents and the families arrive at 6 a.m., so be ready. Imelda sighs. She knows that tomorrow will be a necessary, but still difficult day. Imelda looks at Ciri with a bit of guilt and regret in her eyes and said, If I knew it was going to be like that, I wouldn't have told you to get to the point. To her credit, Ciri responds with, don't worry. I know what you're like when you're in the middle of work and sweat. We'll have plenty more to talk about, Imelda. Don't worry about it, darling. Ciri turns around and at her command, the regular insects composing the staircase shifted and moved as one. Imelda could only watch in slight amazement as hundreds of thousands of tiny little insects scurried, jumped, crawled, and flew back from whence they had been summoned. Ciri was still suspended in midair, held aloft by the black insects she had summoned from her body. They formed a platform underneath her that kept her in midair. At her telepathic command and a slight gesture, the black insect cloud slowly descends and touches down on the ground, puts on her high heels. Ciri turns around and smiles at Imelda as the black insects return, climbing up her legs, her sleeves, the collar of her shirt. The clothing bulge in mismatched shapes, but then the bulges sink back down into her skin, and it's like the insects were never there to begin with. She puts her sunglasses back on and turns around and walks away into the perfect black limousine. Imelda can't help but feel a little jealous of Ciri's display of much more useful and versatile powers, but also a little bit relieved that she didn't have to deal with any of that. As the limousine drives on, she knows that she will have to sleep early tonight to prepare for tomorrow. Oh, but Imelda, if only you knew that what you would do tomorrow wouldn't be the toughest thing you would ever do. Oh no, little did she know that across the Atlantic Ocean, an evil from 75 years ago, an evil long since buried in the fog of World War II, was beginning to re-emerge, to rebuild strength. Oh, Imelda, everything you'll do in these next couple of weeks will just be a test to prepare you for what is to come. I sure do hope you've enjoyed the first episode of my new audio drama, Imelda the Giantess. The director's commentary for this episode will be available sometime next week, and the week after that, episode 2 will be released. If you've enjoyed this episode, and know someone who might also enjoy it as well, then please share this story. And please support me by commenting, liking, and subscribing. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.